What's up, guys? I'm Hi, and welcome to another Explorer Deck Tech. I'm excited this week to talk about the Angels tribe because I've not talked about this tribe yet on this channel in any format. It's an extremely powerful tribe, and there's different ways we can build the deck, which I'll talk about the different ways in this video, as well as all the individual card choices and some of the pros and cons to the different ways you can build this deck. But before we get started, I mentioned in the last video when I was talking about the red aggro or the red deck wins types of decks are so popular and prevalent right now all over the Explorer metagame. And due to their popularity and then the mirror match, I've noticed a trend where a lot of those decks, they're not running as many anti-life gain cards or cards that cut off life gain. And that's great news if you're an Angels player, because that means this deck can absolutely thrive and just really punish and farm those decks on the ladder right now. That's not to say that if the anti-life gain does pick up in popularity, it doesn't mean this deck is dead or anything. It's very powerful either way in a vacuum, even when you're not farming decks like that. But we can talk about the different ways you can go about this deck, and I'll talk about the list that I'm currently on and why. But typically, with Angels, you often see green-white Selesnya, but there's also some Bant versions that look to splash the card that can copy the land, that can copy a creature. So you often copy one of your own Angels, and that version hasn't felt very compelling to me to splash blue just for that card, unless maybe you're looking for more that blue has to offer. But you can certainly go mono white and be extremely consistent that way. And if you're mono white, you could for sure run more creature lands, creature utility lands, just be very streamlined and aggressive that way. However, I think Collected Company just can't be ignored. It's such a powerful card when you have a deck full of high creature density, especially in the 3 casting cost range as this deck does. So I feel like Collected Company is kind of a given if you're running Angels. I don't see why you would run an Angels deck without 4 copies of Collected Company. So that kind of puts me on white-green at a minimum. And the most compelling version that I'm not running would be kind of an Abzan white-green-black version. And the reason why I might want to add black would be for Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, which I'm still contemplating. I'd love to hear in the comments and discussion below. Let me know what you think of my Angels build after I get into it and talk about its specifics in depth. But I've experimented a lot with Vito in like white-black or preferably Abzan, green, black, white. And you can splash Vito. It's so powerful to turn all of your life gain also into a draining effect on the opponent, as well as being able to give all your creatures a lifelink. However, my current thought is that I'm just not quite sure if it's worth it, because we have to stretch the mana base a little bit. We want to add a little bit of a few ways to add black so we can actually hard cast this thing. Then you can always hit it off Collected Company, but there are times when I feel like Vito might not be worth it. For instance, if it shines when you're gaining a ton of life. And if you're gaining a ton of life, that means I already have things jiving in the deck and you're kind of popping off. You have a lot of Angels in play, you're gaining life. So hopefully you're already doing well. So in that way, it can kind of be thought of as a win more card. However, I won't be that unfair to the card, because I think it's a lot better than that. In the mirror match specifically, I think Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose absolutely shines. Sometimes in the crazy Angel on Angel mirror match, you'll get into just these ridiculous board states where everyone's gaining hundreds of life a turn, and Vito really kind of reverses the matchup, and you can just drain your opponent super quickly. But outside of the mirror match, and if things don't line up correctly, Vito's just by itself, it's not going to be very good. Things have to already be going really well for you for this card to shine. So I think it's absolutely awesome, and it makes a lot of sense, this deck. And like I said, I'm still kind of on the fence about running it or not. I keep kind of dancing back and forth on splashing it, but I currently am not. So I'll share the the deck that I have running now. But I just wanted to add the kind of plant a flag of disclaimer before we dive in and just talk about like this is one card I see as major potential in this deck and something to consider if you're looking to build angels or if you're already playing it and you haven't experimented with this. Again, let me know what you think in the comments, like on your opinion on Veto. I think it's really powerful here. I'm just not sure if it is ideal for just a blind best of one meta just for our stock build. So I'll dive into the deck now and talk about all my individual choices and the exact list that I'm on, many of which we can go over very quickly because it's generally very stock. But of course, as I said, I'm on white-green, and the Angels deck has been kind of quietly just climbing the metagame ladder in terms of just share and percentage of victory. This is outlined by Untapped data, as well as just kind of seen it on anecdotal evidence of just playing the ladder. But with this white-green version, like I said, many of the choices I have are pretty stock, so we'll run through them all, and I'll talk about some of the additions that I have in here that maybe aren't as common. But Lunarch Veteran, start at the 1 casting cost area. I've got 4 of these. It's not always seen in Angels, but it's commonly seen in the Angels deck. I should also say, if I haven't already, technically we could really call this a clerics deck because there are actually more clerics than angels in this deck, and that actually has some relevance to knowing and understanding that with some of the other cards we'll look at later. But Lunarch Veteran, this is kind of like one of your soul sisters, just a 1/1 1-drop to gain life whenever you cast creatures. This is significant, not just to have a 1-drop and pressure, but we'll look at some of the other cards in the deck where this has a ton of synergy with. Moving on, Speaker of the Heavens. This is very much a staple of the deck for obvious reasons. You're trying to get to 27 life or 7 life greater than your starting total. So at 27 life, a lot of the magic is unlocked in this deck where we can do a lot of busted things. And one of those things that we can do that's pretty busted is with Speaker of the Heavens. So with this guy out, once we get to 27 life, at sorcery speed, every turn we can just start creating angels on the fly, 4/4 white angels. And that's great, but he's also just a 1/1 lifelink vigilance as well, which is okay as well. And we'll look at some areas where just gaining life is good as well. But moving on, I've got 4 copies of Voice of the Blessed. This is just a busted card, in my opinion. Again, it's not an angel, but it is a cleric, so it has a lot of applications in this really cleric/angels deck. But Voice of the Blessed, of course, is going to be getting bigger and stronger and different buffs based on how many levels of +1/+1 counters you have on it. But very quickly, Voice of the Blessed can get out of control and just snowball into craziness where you start gaining life. This thing's going to get so big so quickly. Also, in the mirror match, Voice of the Blessed is particularly powerful for big battles of attrition when you get in these insane Cold War matches with another Angels deck. Because once it gets, I believe, 10 or more counters on it, which is in these mirror matches, is absolutely totally doable. We've all seen Voice of the Blessed get to 10 counters. It's not that tricky. And once it does, it's not only flying, vigilance, and indestructible. That is what is so significant about it, because once it's indestructible and it has vigilance, now you can just freely attack, even if the board states are insane. If your opponent isn't running Voice of the Blessed and they don't have an indestructible flying creature, they're going to slowly start to lose the war of attrition, so you can attack with this. So this is just an all-purpose, strong, aggressive card with a ton of synergy in a deck that gains a lot of life, as this deck does. So to me, it's a great 2-drop in this deck. It makes a lot of sense, and very good in the mirror match, but also just very powerful in general, even not in the mirror match or in a situation as I just described. Moving on, Bishop of Wings, absolutely a staple of the deck. Really at its core, before Giada came out, the core of this deck was the Bishops, the Resplendent Angels, and the Righteous Valkyries, as we'll move on to. But it's really this trifecta of these 3 angels what really makes this deck super powerful and can gain a lot of life and get a lot of toughness and power on the board very quickly. But Bishop of Wings, of course, 2 white, 1/4, great defender early in the game. Oftentimes this is the 2-drop you want to play over Voice of the Blessed and Giada. There are situations where that'll change, of course, depending on your mana. If you need Giada's mana producing ability to maybe get a 3-drop out if you're stuck on 2 lands for some reason. Maybe you have already started with a Lunarch Veteran. Sometimes Voice of the Blessed can be the better, more aggressive play if you anticipate being able to power it up quickly. But in a vacuum, I think Bishop of Wings is generally the play. But also Giada can be strong as well if you have more of an angel heavy hand and you want to chain them and make them larger. But honestly, it's a tough call. Both of these can be really strong early. All 3 of these 2-drops are fine laid out. It gets into splitting hairs and just looking at individual turns of like what order. You can't really go too wrong with your plays, but there's a lot of little nuances to think about. But generally, Bishop of Wings, I feel, is usually the stronger thing to lead out on turn 2, given options if you have all 3 of these at your disposal. But moving on, well, I guess before we move on, just mention also it's very relevant. In addition to gaining the 4 life when you cast or when an angel enters the battlefield with Bishop of Wings, it also has the relevant ability of every time an angel dies, you're going to get 1/1 Flying Spirits, which is great as well. Not to be forgotten. Very relevant, strong ability for sure. But moving on to Giada, Font of Hope. So the Angels deck was already powerful before Streets of New Capenna came out, and Giada has been a very huge, powerful pickup for this deck. But I think it's gone kind of under the radar. Not under the radar, but just not a lot of hype, or just kind of quietly added to the deck, as just because it's such an obvious inclusion. And it doesn't do anything like super busted where it's going to get any talk of like just, wow, this is broken, it's warping the format. But it is a huge, strong pickup for the deck. It's a 2/2 Flying Vigilance, which is already fine. And it's an angel, so it's got the synergy there. But of course, it has the ability to add white to spend mana on angels. We don't have a lot of high casting cost angels. Because we are a collected company deck, we are capped out at the 3 casting costs. There are some powerful 5 CC angels that you may want to consider running, but of course that's going to weaken your collected company probability of hitting 2 creatures a little bit. So I've opted to run none of them. You could sprinkle in 1 or 2 for some spice to have something really powerful at the top end to have Giada help cast. Currently I am not, but Giada's main ability is so powerful where every other angel that enters the battlefield will enter with an additional +1/+1 counter for each angel you already control. This scales up and gets out of control quickly as well, especially in the angel versus angel mirror match where it turns into a Cold War quickly and you both start getting massive board states. If one angel player doesn't have Giada in play, they are at a very big disadvantage because their angels that they're creating will just be dwarfed by the opponent that does have Giada. The angels just be so much larger, they'll be able to overpower them in a matter of just a few turns. So Giada is now, it's really these 4 cards now are like the core of the deck. You could also argue Speaker of the Heavens definitely has 2 just for the additional angel creation and just such synergy. So kind of like these 5 cards I think are core if you're looking to build this deck. The rest is kind of experimental. I could also maybe say Collected Company is core as well, just because it's such a powerful card in aggro strategies such as this. It's not an angel exclusive thing, but again, these like 5 cards, maybe 6 if you count Collected Company. The rest is kind of up to you to decide how you want to do things. But moving on quickly, we'll get up to the Righteous Valkyrie, maybe the most important angel of the deck and what really defines this deck. It's another 3 mana, 2/4 flying angel. Also Angel Cleric. As I mentioned, there's more clerics in this deck than angels. But so with Righteous Valkyrie, of course, anytime an angel or cleric enters the battlefield under our control, we gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And that magic number, again, 7 more life than our starting total. So if we're at 27 or greater life, everything in play gets buffed +2/+2. So we've all played against this deck or played with this deck where it can go from like looking not that kind of underwhelming, to out of nowhere, the opponent or you, if you're on the deck, you can gain like 20 life in a turn and just put multiple angels. And then once you go over that 27 life threshold, everything just gets buffed out of control. It's extremely powerful. Notable that some people, myself included, have made the mistake of thinking this is exactly like Bishop of Wings. You gain 4 life when an angel or cleric enters the battlefield. Do note, of course, it's not 4, it's the toughness. Now, oftentimes, it may be 4 life, depending on the type of angel that's coming into play. But sometimes it can be less, or sometimes it'll be even very much greater. For example, if you have Giada in play, these creatures are entering with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So then when a Righteous Valkyrie checks toughness, you're gaining even more life. So it's just insane. Again, Giada was such a huge pickup for this deck. Just a staple, really a bomb of a card. Just a great card to drop for 2 mana. So Righteous Valkyrie, critical card to the deck. Maybe the best angel in the deck. That might be hard to take, though, from Resplendent Angel. It could be one of these two, but Resplendent Angel, another core of the deck. Awesome card. 3 mana, 3/3 flying. At the beginning of each end step, make note that's each end step, so it could be on your opponent's turn as well, or your turn. If you've gained 5 or more life this turn, you get a free 4/4 white angel at the end of turn. And so remember, that's each turn, so you can take advantage of this by casting Collected Company sometimes on your opponent's turn if you've already gained 5 life on your turn. And if possible, you can gain 5 life on your turn and your opponent's turn and get multiple angels at the end of the turn. But most often, Resplendent Angel is going to be awesome if you're able to chain turn 1 Lunarch Veteran, followed by a second turn Bishop of Wings, into turn 3 Resplendent Angel. So, of course, you're going to gain the 4 life from the Bishop for casting Resplendent Angel, and then you're going to get the 1 life from Lunarch Veteran. So you're going to hit that 5 life gain in a turn, and as early as turn 3, you could cast Resplendent Angel and get a free 4/4 angel, which again is going to trigger these gain life abilities, gain you another 5 life. So you're going to gain 10 life on turn 3 and put 7 power on the board, and that's 7 power in the air as well. So this is one of the most powerful things the deck can do. It's one of the reasons why you're on this deck. This card is so powerful. In addition, it's got the ability that is sometimes relevant for 6 mana. If you can get up to 6 until end of turn, you can give it +2/+2 and gain lifelink. Of course, then it has kind of the built-in ability of gaining the 5 life itself without help from anything else and still getting to that 5 life threshold where you can get that free angel. So very powerful card for the deck. Moving on, we get to a not so common card. This is kind of my tech, if you will, for the deck that I haven't really seen others run necessarily with this. But Realmwalker is pretty awesome in my opinion. In these aggro decks, we're so powerful. We have got tons of synergy, but sometimes some of the lacking power can be in running out of resources, card advantage, being able to have resiliency and come back after Wrath of God type effects or board sweepers. So this is going to fill that role, much like Collected Company can get us ahead on cards and put multiple things in the battlefield. Realmwalker is a great just resource and value card. For 3 mana, we get a 2/3 changeling creature. So, of course, this counts as both a cleric and an angel. So remember, Realmwalker will trigger everything else that an angel or cleric would, because it is an angel and a cleric. So it's got great synergy already with the rest of the deck. And when you cast it, or when it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. So with this deck, like I said, we actually have more clerics than angels. We're at 20 clerics, 12 angels. So generally speaking, I will cast this and name cleric first. Now the top of our library has 20 clerics, but there's actually 23, I believe, because I don't think this is counting the changeling creature, which is the shapeshifter. So there's actually 23 clerics and I guess 15 angels if we want to get technical about it. So 23 clerics, you cast this. Now at all times you have a greater than you have a greater than 1/3 chance of being able to cast a cleric from the top of your deck, and kind of blanking on the name of the blue reality chip card, that was taking some of these artifact decks to the top after Kamigawa came out. Anyways, it's just a very powerful effect is what I'm trying to say. It's very fun and it's awesome to be able to just play cards from the top of your library. Of course, there are times when it'll just be a land on top and you can't cast anything. But generally, when you cast this, you name Cleric, you have a really good shot at just starting to just cast Clerics off the top of your library, or Angel Clerics. If you happen to get a second Realmwalker out, it can be certainly worth considering, and most oftentimes I will, if you know your opponent isn't going to kill one in the next turn, to also name Angel with the second one, because then you have everything covered. Now you can cast every single creature in the deck off the top of your library just from this one thing. And again, it's only 3 mana, and it itself is already a 2/3 Angel Cleric. So this has really bailed me out in some of these grindier matchups where people are just one-for-oneing, killing some of your more important angels. And like I said, all of these angels are so good. So as well as the Voice of the Blessed, these cards are so powerful. They all have targets on their back. Like, your opponent can't ignore these things, so they have to kill this stuff. And if they're just one-for-oneing things and killing these things, and you follow it up with a Realmwalker when all the dust is settled, this can just completely take over the game and restock your whole board state over time, where you just start casting and getting everything back from the top of your library. And like I said, a huge fan of effects like that. It's really powerful. Haven't seen a lot of Angels decks making use of this guy, and I think it's really awesome. I'm a big advocate for it right now. If you can't tell, I've been rising the ranks with this list specifically, and I think Realmwalker is really powerful, interesting card for this. I could even consider going up to 4 copies. I might consider shaving maybe 1 Lunarch Veteran, maybe even a land. I'm on 24, which feels about right. Could consider trimming to 23 probably, just to add that 4th Realmwalker. But I really don't want to miss getting that 3rd land drop, or even the 4th land drop, because Collected Company and playing these 3 drops is so important. It can just be backbreaking to miss a land drop that early. So I'm on the full 24 kind of standard lands for a deck like this. But moving on, and wrap this up. But of course, Collected Company, nothing more to be said. There are times, sometimes a lot of times you'll want to be main phasing this, just to get the extra effects from all your triggers on your turn. There are times when you may surprise your opponent, play it on their turn. Be always aware of that life total, that 27, trying to get to 27 life. Sometimes it is possible you'll be at like 19 life, and your opponent attacks in, or you're attacking, and you can factor in that if you Collected Company, it's possible you could hit 2 Valkyries, or a Bishop and a Valkyrie, and you're going to gain 8 life on the spot. So if you're at 19, that would put you up to 27, and then you're going to get that threshold of buffing everything, and you can have some surprise blowout blocks on your opponent, as well as blowout attacks where they aren't anticipating the +2/+2 effect, and you can kind of go for it in situations where you recognize the payoff could be huge if you do hit. There are other situations where you don't want to gamble, and you maybe don't want to attack if you realize that if you don't hit threshold of the 27 life and the +2/+2 effect, it might be better to cast Collected Company before you attack in this way. Then you can at least see, while you lose the surprise factor, you'll at least be able to see exactly what you get, and then you can strategize better and calculate if it's worth attacking from that point. But Collected Coming, just a bomb of a card. Obviously, it's auto inclusion in a deck like this, so won't say anything more about it. The last one singleton card in the deck, have to cover real quickly. Ajani, Strength of the Pride. Why is this here? This is, of course, your Mirror Breaker. We're running this. The first two abilities are good and relevant. They're totally fine. Gaining life and creating, an Ajani Pride mate token, as it were. Just kind of a weakened Voice of the Blessed token, which is fine. That's totally fine as a Planeswalker thing to do in this deck. It's relevant, but we're of course running this for the ultimate, which costs 0, so we don't have to build up loyalty or anything with this. Instead, it has a check of if we're at 15 more life total than our starting life. So of course, if we're at 35 life, we can ultimate Ajani and exile every creature and artifact our opponent controls. This is absolutely huge. If you've ever played an Angel versus Angel Mirror deck, or Mirror Match rather, or you've played like the historic deck, the Heliod life gain, infinite life gain combo, it can just be absolutely terrible in playing those mirror matches where, well, terrible or terribly fun depending on if you like the matchup or not, where it's just non-stop triggers. Both opponents are at 1,000 life or more. Nobody's seemingly getting anywhere in the game, and it's spiraling into a draw because it's taking too long to resolve the triggers, even in Magic Arena where they're mostly automated. This is your get out of jail free card for this. And you're both at 1,000 life. Doesn't matter. You cast this, you exile their entire board, and hopefully you have just tons of stuff. You can do hundreds of damage to them in a turn. And if they don't quit on the spot, they'll be dead in a matter of turns. So super satisfying in these gain life mirror matches to cast Ajani and just win that way. So that's why we got the one floating copy of him here. It's a very, very critical, important card in my opinion, to definitely necessitate one copy just to break those disgusting, grindy mirror matches where you both more or less have infinite life. And then lastly, the mana base, like I said, it's 24 lands, heavily skewed on white because we're almost all white with it. Just a very light green splash. Mentioned potentially cutting one land for the 4th Realmwalker, but still like 24 lands currently. But again, nothing special, just again, a smattering of the white-green duels. Minimizing comes into play tap lands because we are an aggro deck at its core, and we can't fall behind in the early game. We got to keep the pressure and just exploit the amazing synergy that the Angels decks have. So I've been loving this deck right now, guys. I've been playing it. I've been grinding. Full disclosure, I've also been playing a lot of New Capenna, Streets of New Capenna Alchemy draft. It's been a lot of fun. The cards are really busted. They're all good, and they're so good that many of them have infiltrated and found new homes in Historic and making some really broken Historic decks. So I've actually been exploring a lot of that lately and just trying lots of silly decks, but getting back into Explorer now and grinding my way up the ladder, as well as trying to take down those 7-win events and try to keep building up these play points so we can enter events and try to qualify for bigger tournaments. But that's the deck. Definitely like and subscribe if you haven't already, as this channel is still in its infancy while we keep growing. Appreciate you guys watching till the end, and definitely comment below. I want to hear what you guys think about Veto. Is it worth it in Angels? Do you agree with my take earlier on when it's good, when it's bad? Is it worth the light black splash? Just want to hear your thoughts on it because I've been blown out by the card. I've tried playing with it, against it. It certainly is awesome in the mirror match, but certainly not. I don't think it's as important as something like Ajani in the mirror match, but maybe I'm wrong because it does seem to really set up, whoever has it in the mirror match seems to really dictate and win the game relatively quickly. So this is the only card I'm still kind of on the fence about. I may end up actually like pulling a trigger and going all in on it and committing to the Abzan build. But anyway, so just let me know what you think about that. But enough rambling. Again, guys, I'm Sci High. Thanks for watching till the end, and as always, good luck on the ladder. Peace.